All right, today we're going to dive into a story about a family recipe. You know the kind, a secret passed down for ages. But this one, it had one very, very strange step that, for the life of them, nobody could figure out.
So, let me introduce you to Julia. Her family had this brisket recipe that was, legendary. We're talking famous within the family. But like I said, there was this one little instruction in there, and it made absolutely zero sense. So the story really kicks off one afternoon when Julia gets home from school. The second she walks through the front door, this amazing smell hits her. It's that unmistakable scent of garlic just sizzling away in some melted butter. And then right after that, she gets that sharp, almost sweet smell of freshly chopped onions. She knew that combo anywhere. Her whole face just lit up. And then came the final clue, that deep, rich smell of tomato paste. That was it. She bolts into the kitchen, sees her dad at the counter, and yells, "You're making Bubby's brisket."
So Julia's watching her dad get this giant piece of brisket ready. You know, he's rubbing it down with all the good stuff, salt, pepper, thyme. But then he does something she'd seen 100 times but never really thought about. He grabs this massive knife, lops a few inches off the skinny end, and then turns it around and cuts a couple more inches off the thick, fatty end. All that was left was the middle hunk.
Julia's just staring at these two pieces of meat on the cutting board. It looked like a total waste. So she finally asks him, "Dad, why do you cut the sides off? That looks like perfectly good meat."
And her dad, he just kind of shrugs. "That's the way your Bubby always did it," he says. "It's just part of the secret recipe." Now, that was an answer, sure, but it wasn't an explanation. And that's when this little mystery really started to get under her skin. So fast forward to later that week, and the whole family is over at her grandmother's house, her Bubby. Julia knew this was her chance. She was going to get a real answer this time. So when Julia brings up the brisket recipe, her Bubby, of course, tells the old family joke. She says, "Oh, I can write it down for you, but you have to memorize it and then eat the paper so it doesn't fall into enemy hands." Julia laughs along, but then she gets right to it. She asks about cutting off the ends. And Bubby's answer? "Well, that's just how my mother always did it. I would never dare to question the secret recipe." Okay. So now we're another generation back, and it's the exact same non-answer. At this point, Julia's on a full-blown quest. She'd struck out with her dad, she'd struck out with her Bubby. There was only one person left in this chain of command to ask, her great Bubby. The very next week, the family goes to visit great Bubby. Julia is locked in. This time, she is not leaving without solving this mystery once and for all. So after all the hellos and catching up, Julia pops the big question. And her great Bubby just smiles and gives her this all-too-familiar answer. "Oh, honey, that's just how my mother taught me. We've been making it that way since I was knee-high to a grasshopper." You can just imagine Julia's frustration at this point. It was just baffling. Julia's thinking through the whole recipe, and every single step has a reason, right? The spices are for flavor. The wine and broth keep it moist. The carrots and onions add depth. But chopping off two perfectly good pieces of meat, it just didn't make any logical sense. This was it. She had to go straight to the source, the architect, the original inventor of the recipe. Julia actually convinced her dad to take her to the nursing home to visit her great-great Bubby. Now, her great-great Bubby was a little over 100 years old, but believe me, she was sharp as a tack. And when Julia brought up the brisket, you should have seen her face. It just lit right up, and she confirmed it herself. She said, "Oh yes, I invented that recipe probably 80 years ago now." This was the moment of truth. Julia took a deep breath and asked the question that had been echoing, unanswered for decades. "I was just wondering, why do we cut off the ends of the brisket?" Her great-great Bubby just kind of looked at her, a little confused, and then she just burst out laughing. This deep, joyful laugh that just filled the room. And when she finally caught her breath, she looked at Julia and said, "Oh my goodness, are you all really still doing that?" Well, hello there. I'm Gemini. That battery can last up to 24 hours even with the always-on display turned on. It's pretty cool. She finally gets her composure back, and with this little twinkle in her eye, she explains it all. "Honey, I only cut off the sides because the brisket wouldn't fit in my pan. Back then, we only had one tiny little roasting pan in our little kitchen." And there it was. The family's great culinary secret was just a small pan. It was a practical fix. So, that very week, armed with this incredible new information, Julia decided she was going to make the brisket herself. She followed the recipe perfectly,
step by step, using her family's big modern roasting pan. But she made one very important change. She left the ends on.
And of course, it was amazing, just as delicious as it had always been. So, there you have it, a cherished family tradition, a secret step passed down through 4 generations, all because 80 years ago, someone's pan was just a little too small.